I always do. Tuesday, 2:30 PGA show from Awesemo.com. The Sony Open, the first, I'm going to call it the first real event of 2021. I am Ben Rasa here with fantasy golf man Tim Frank. All right, we got a little warm up in at Tournament Champions, 42 golfers. We'll get to Harris English in a second. Now we get the first field. Are you excited for officially Friday cut sweats?
I am definitely excited. Last week was not a real event because it was won by Harris English. Does not count. But yeah, that last week was like a warm up, right? Small field, everybody makes the cut. It's like, you feel like you got a chance the whole week. We want some serious action on Friday. Some possibilities of just being stone dead come Friday afternoon and having to look at all those dead lineups. Basically what Pga Dfs is all about. This is where it starts.
That's what it's built on. Yeah, I mean, listen, the Tournament Champions, it's fun. It's exciting to have golf back, but one of the many problems with it is you can't really sweat it because it's great to be doing good on Thursday and Friday and Saturday and Sunday early and Sunday middle, but ultimately none of it matters until late. The scoring is insane and it flips so quickly. So it can be a little hard to kind of grasp where you're at. And that's what I'll be honest, I didn't pay a ton of attention. I was rooting for Neiman. I did really like him. I wanted him to win, obviously, over Harris English, who I did not play. And that was not the case. Did you catch a ton of coverage for the Century?
I did not. Well, one of the good things about being contrarian is the galaxy brain, sometimes it doesn't work out well and it just frees up your whole weekend. That's what we had last week, but we're going to fire again this week. No, just didn't catch a lot of it. It's tough. I mean, even as a hardcore golf fan, it's tough when you're going up against playoff football, but so no, didn't watch a ton on Sunday. I mean, I don't know what to say. We were getting tweets all over the place about Harris English.
He's playing well.
He's played well. I don't know what else to say. Just a great all-around game. I mean, he never really does it with the ball striking. It's always decent. It's never great. It's a great short game. There's a lot of things about him that I just am not ready to put him in the elite class. So I will probably be fading him for the rest of the year. But good for him. He got a win in a 46-man field, and let's just be done with him for the rest of the year now.
Yeah, count me in for that. Ironically, on our Live Before Lock, my hot take was that someone who did not win last year was going to win Tournament Champions. I was thinking Finau or Hideki. Obviously, in the cruel twist of irony, Harris English, the QB, whatever you want to call that, I don't count that. But you got to give him credit. He's playing well. I still think that more often than not, realistically, all jokes aside, if he's going to be up there at 10 and 11K, even in weaker fields, it's going to be tough for me to get a ton of exposure week in and week out. But we'll play it on face value. We're going to talk about this a lot throughout the show, Tim, but I do want to ask, do you care? How heavily do you care if your guys played last week as we turn the page to Sony?
I mean, I don't really care too much. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, how, well, a lot of the winners from the Sony have played the week before. And the obvious retort to that is, well, that's the best players in the field have all played the week before at the Century. It's nice to see guys play last week, play well. It's nice to see where their game's at with the ball striking and whatnot, but kind of in the same vein as last week where we didn't have a lot of information to go off of. And what we did, I thought was going to be kind of overvalued by the public. I think we're still in the same boat. The majority of this field we haven't seen in a long time. So we're going to have people relying on, stats and finishes from months ago. And I think people are going to overvalue what happened last week in a 1 week sample size. I think they're going to look at that. They're going to see the guys that played well. They're going to see the guys that struck it well. And while we do like to play those guys, and I like to rely on that a lot, I think it's going to be overvalued this week because we just don't have a lot of other stuff to go off of. I mean, so people are going to default to what happened last week, probably more than they should. So, yeah, I mean, obviously you would like to see a slight preference to the guys that played last week, but I think you got to go take some shots with guys that we haven't seen too.
It's going to be a mix. would prefer that my guy, but it's weird. I'm going to split the difference. I really don't care how my guy played, but I would prefer that he did play. I'm not concerned that if he didn't play well. I don't really care about that. And as we dive in, we'll get there. But first, I do want to talk about Waialae. The good thing about Sony Open, it's the same course for the last like 80 years. So we know what we're getting into here, Tim. Talk about that. And then I do want to ask you, last year, from what I remember and what I looked into, was almost an outlier. It was absolutely brutal conditions relative to what they normally see. Is that your read? And do you think we kind of revert back to historical trends rather than 2020's outlier?
Yeah, I mean, and you could just tell by the winning score, 11 under by Cam Smith. And then prior to that, we had 22 under, 17 under, 27 under. I mean, some just absolutely ridiculous scorings, 20 under, 23 under, and this is for a par 70. So it generally plays very easy course. Just one of the, your typical short Bermuda seaside track, par 70, 7,050 yards. Really, it's like the wind and the elements are the only defense. And if the wind isn't blowing, it's really straightforward, not tough off of the tee. And then it's just a lot of short irons and making putts. Very similar to, a place like Harbor Town, place like Colonial. It has a lot of overlap in the leaderboard with Honda, which is a tougher course, but the overlap between like the winners and the guys up at the top is undeniable. Russell Henley's won both events. JT's won both events. Ernie Els has won both events. Mark Wilson's won both events. Ryan Palmer won the Sony and lost in a playoff at Honda. Rory Sabatini won the Sony and has a second at the Honda. So there's a lot in common with the Honda, although that's a little bit of a tougher track. But, this falls in line with all those kind of shorter Bermuda tracks where, distance off the tee really doesn't do much for you. Small greens, a lot of approach game.
Mark Wilson makes the show.
We go way back. We hit the way back machine.
Didn't have that on the bingo card. But you know what? Sure. Why not? Yeah, listen, this course, some similarities I take from last week, a lot different though in some regards, and certainly the fairways, but you can work in and out of trouble. You've summed it up here. And we'll see what the weather brings. Last year, Cameron Smith, your boy, took it down, but if there's one year I kind of will throw out a little bit, it would be 2020. I just think, yeah. And hey, shout out to Rick Rungood, one of the good guys in chat who had Harris English on his cumulative contest that we're running with Pat Mayo and is off to a good start, but I have Griot, so I will take it back this week. And that's a perfect segue. Even though he doesn't belong in the 10K plus, I'm going to use Griot as the segue to get into the top end golfers. We've got 6 of them, leading with Webb Simpson, kicking off the pricing, 11,100. Tournament of Champions winner, Harris English. Then we've got Morikawa, Neiman, Decky, and Berger. All guys that played last week, not the elite of the elite, but the best we have in this field. Tim, what do you make of the top?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Webb obviously is going to be overwhelmingly popular. Just a great course for him. And we've seen him just crush at these weaker field, short Bermuda tracks, Harbor Town, places like that, Wyndham. Everything looks like it lines up great. I think the ownership will be really high, but he does seem like a really good, really safe play. Concerning last week, he lost 6.5 strokes off the tee. And we know that the tee game is his 1 weak link, and this is not a course that demands a lot off the tee. But I just thought that was kind of worth noting. He was really bad off the tee, but the approach game was solid, and the rest of his game is really solid. Good safe play. I just think he'll be really popular. We're going to X out Harris English and just pray. Should be a great course fit for Morikawa, a guy that has a strong approach game. But I think I'm just going to be a glutton for punishment here and go to what I hope is a low-owned Hideki, who was just god-awful with the putter. He lost almost 10 strokes putting last week. This is what we've seen out of him kind of all over the place. And the ball striking wasn't that good, but it was better on the weekend. He was positive ball striking for Saturday and Sunday. But, if we're going to get a good ownership discount on him, he's cheaper than Webb. I think people are going to overreact to him finishing dead last week, which I don't want to overreact to one event. Almost all of it was due to the putter. I mean, if we're going to get him a good ownership, I think he's a good play. Maybe like a third of the ownership of Webb?
It's not just that. It's what you said in terms of the overreaction. If he was just average, certainly if he was good, you could argue that he would be maybe one of the, if not the most popular play this week. He was terrible last week, and now he's not going to be. And, we've already seen what happened to Decky last week. He lost 9.7 strokes putting. I mean, what can you really do there? More concerning to me than that is that he lost 1.8 strokes on the approach. That is an outlier, I hope, because Decky's strength is certainly with the irons, and he needs to do that because he's not a good putter. 9.7 is a little much, though, even for him.
The greens are smaller and flatter here. I don't think he can lose 9.7.
I would hope. Well, he definitely can't lose 9.7 and miss the cut. That I can guarantee, because you can't do that in 36 holes. My guys have tried. The guy that is causing me the most problems, I think Webb is very safe. Decky is fine. What do you do with Niemann, who, again, I liked him last week, but I like to target him in that mid-range, the low 8s, high 7s. This is a big price bump, but he's playing fantastic, 7.3 with the irons.
Yeah, it just feels like this is like an all-time high for Niemann. I think you and I have been on him a lot since the restart, and we were kind of hammering him when he was like 7,900, 8,400. And he deserves to be priced up here. He's a talent. He played great last week. He's been playing great since the restart. But for me, it's just seems like this is like an all-time high price for him. I don't know. I don't love the course fit. Not, he relies somewhat on off the tee. He's not necessarily a bomber, but some of that'll be negated. It's more of a price thing for me. I just think 10-4 is a little bit too much.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if, someone said they really like that, they want to start with Niemann, I have no problem with that. Of course, he's a fantastic player. He really can score. I certainly would like a non-cut for him. I certainly would like some of the other attributes that we saw maybe last week versus this week, whether it's price and things like that. The last guy I have to ask, weren't really on him last week. Any different for Berger? This is obviously not a par 73. Maybe this is in his wheelhouse a little more.
I mean, it is right in his wheelhouse. Par 70 short, Bermuda, St. Jude, he crushes that, has the playoff loss at Honda, does well at these courses. I'm not going to play him. He played well last week, 10th, gained 6.1 with the ball striking. I will say what was interesting when I kind of did like a median run of all the outright odds, I have him at 14-1. So the outright betting market loves him for the price. I mean, you look at Niemann, I have at 22. Hideki, I have at 20. I have Berger coming in as like the second favorite, him and Harris English at 14-1. I don't put a lot of stock in that, but the outright market loves him compared to this price, but I'm never going to get there with him at 10K.
Yeah, he's towards for me, just to sum it up, and we'll get to the nines. Decky, Webb, probably Niemann third, but there's a gap. I think I would like to start with one of the two that we mentioned. But what I'd really like to do, and I'm not going to be the only one who thinks of this, obviously, but you spend half the show talking about Honda. Sungjae Im was fantastic last week. He is the champion at Honda. What is there not to like at 9,800?
Yeah, I agree. There is nothing to not like, I guess, besides we could say ownership, him and Webb. I think that'll be a really popular way to start lineups. But if I had to pick one of the two to play and one of the two to fade, I would take Sungjae. The price is just too good. We've seen him, playing well, and he does it in all ways. He's not stuck in one facet of the game that he's always relying on. It's not like a terrible putter. I mean, some weeks things come and go, but well-rounded game. The ball striking was phenomenal. We've seen him trending in the right direction at the end of last year, played great at the Masters. He gained 7.8 with the ball striking last week, won the Honda, which is a perfect correlation for this course. I think he's an absolute stud. He's young. He's 22. I feel a lot better paying 9,800 for a guy like him, who I could say, you know what, maybe in a year or two, we're putting him in the conversation with guys like Rahm and Rory, whereas paying the 10K for Berger, 10-6 or 10-8 for English, who I feel like are just playing above their head. So yeah, big time fan of him here, but he'll be very popular.
Yeah, as friend of the show, Slim Brody in chat, most popular player this week, I think that's very possible. He easily could but I really like the spot for him. He was fantastic last week. He easily could have won if he didn't lose 3 strokes putting. Just a good play. Rest of this range, we've got Cameron Smith, Abraham Answer, Ryan Palmer, who talk about a price bump, and then Adam Scott, which is probably where I would look. What do you make of the other 5 in the 9s?
Yeah. Not a fan of really anybody outside of him in this range. Ryan Palmer, that price is just out. That seems like out of nowhere. I mean, I know he has a good course history here and he played well last week. And I guess he has a couple good starts in a row that span, 8 weeks or something from the break. But that's egregious. I'm with you on Scott. The approach game was awesome last week. Gained almost 7 strokes. Around the green, bad, lost 4.1. Putting bad, lost 3.8. Hopefully he figures something out with the putter, but he's another guy that won Honda. I think the price is good. The approach game is good. He'd be the guy I go with. I wouldn't blame anybody for playing Answer or Cam Smith, but they're just not for me this week. It's either him at the top or Scott at flat 9.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I will say just Answer, and listen, it's 1 week, but really odd stats for him. He lost 2.5 strokes off the tee, gained 1 with the approach, lost 4 around the green, and gained 7 putting. Almost all of those are atypical for him. Like his irons are usually the weak part, and he usually gains off the tee. So just a little all over the map. But again, it's only 4 rounds. I don't want to overreact to one, little thing.
Yeah, I played some of him last week, and it was definitely strange. Rallied nice on Sunday. He wasn't doing so good, but I think he shot 7 under on Sunday to make a nice little run.
Yeah. Scott, we know what he can do with the irons, just needs to putt. No real take on Cameron Smith. All right. I do want to say a couple things before we get to the 8K range. One, certainly, Chad, it's good to see all the regulars, and I see some new faces in there. If you are new, A, welcome. B, hit the like button. We appreciate it. It really helps us out. And more importantly than that, subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 48,000 subscribers. We're making that push to 50K, and it helps you guys and it helps us. Certainly, we have so many sports going on. We're going to be doing college basketball soon enough. Obviously, NBA in full swing, NFL playoffs. They're doing a good 4 game. I'm very excited to get into that. So we'd love to see that in addition to all the golf talk here. But here we go. 8K. This is where, unlike last week, when we got to these ranges, there was a couple guys at each range, and then we were out of here. As you go down in a 144-man field, the ranges get bigger and bigger. So 8K, Kisner, and this every guy we've talked to has played. He played last week, including Kisner. This is the first range where we get new faces, starting with Russell Henley. And then we've got Billy Ho and Kuchar, Sergio, a lot of guys here. So what stands out? Are these going to be, you're anticipating maybe your second man in some lineups?
Yeah, this is a tough range. Kind of a lot of similar types of players. Kisner, Henley, Horschel, all these guys that you think kind of feast on these Bermuda tracks. Most perfectly, spot for Kisner, I think, out of those 3 guys. Little concerning last week, though. Lost 5.1 with the ball striking, and that's kind of something that you talked about. It's like you wanted to see just the guy play last week. It doesn't really matter how he played, but he was not good. But you should think that this is an absolutely perfect course for him, and he has good results, as you would expect. He has a 4th here last year, 4th in 2017, 5th in 2016. Don't mind him. Don't mind Henley, 8,700. I'm still trying to come to grips with, more expensive Russell Henley, but this is a good spot for him. The approach game was phenomenal last year, especially since the restart. I don't love those guys. I think I would prefer to just get up to Scott at flat 9. But in the upper 8K range, I would say Henley and Kisner. But, not in love with either of those guys this week.
It's really just looking at Kisner's course history it's just very odd. He's got, you mentioned the 4th last year. He was 4th in 2017. He was 5th in 2016. Peppered around that is 3 missed cuts, an 84th, a 69th, and a 25th. And the common thread in the 3 top 5s, he gained strokes on the approach, and in the other 6, he lost strokes on the approach. So it does seem somewhat boom or bust, particularly with the ball striking, but this is a guy we have a pretty large sample size of where he excels, and Sony to me would fit that bucket. So I would go to Kisner, especially in tournaments.
Yeah, should be perfect. Yeah, I think the course history just depends on how much he drank and went fishing
Is our man.
leading up to the event or the morning of. He had a late tee time, probably got in a little bit of fishing and drinking in the morning. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do see him on Bassmasters Classic sometimes on ESPN when they show fishing is wild. Never been fishing in my life. I don't really understand it. One day, someone will have to fill me in how all that works. Billy Ho, ? I mean, he is someone he did play last week. Again, I don't really care how he played. He was just average at best, but another Bermuda guy, good at OHL. Where do you fall? Or are you just kind of indifferent?
I mean, I would put him in the same boat as Kisner, Henley. They're not identical players, but they're guys that seem to excel at the same types of tracks. But he would be last on my list of those three. I'm just not a big Billy Ho guy. He was good through 3 rounds, had a really, really rough Sunday. Wouldn't make too much of that. I think in all of the AK range, I'll go down to Sergio at 8,300. He was decent last week. He was 11th, gained 3.39 with the ball striking. I just think he's the best play in this range. He has a phenomenal record at Honda as well. I don't have him for any course history unless we go way, way back before 2008. But you would think, the record at Honda, you would think that this would carry over a little bit here. And I like him. This is just not a range that I love. I guess he'd be the guy I would lean on in this whole 8K range.
I mean, Sergio has been a hot topic for a while now because he's had really bad stretches with the putter, lost his form. Then he won Sanderson Farms. And that was really out of nowhere if you look at the form. But this is, again, when you have a large sample size, to me, I tend to hold on a little too long. And I'm kind of talking about Harris English now, reluctant to really change my view on them drastically. Like, obviously guys can find form and change, but it's hard to really break out at that age. Sergio is what he is. He's a great driver of the ball. He's literally gained off the tee in every event going all the way back to before, in 2020 as well. So 2019 was the last time he lost strokes off the tee. He can't putt. That's the one wild card. I'm willing to forgive that, especially when he's priced around Zach Johnson, Matt Kuchar, Brendan Todd, and Lanto. Those guys are fine players. I'll take Sergio because his off the tee, I mean, obviously it's miles better than them, but I think it's the best individual stat of any of those guys in any category.
We're going to make correlated lineups of guys that can't putt. We'll just throw them in there with Scott and Hideki and Grillo and hope that putting doesn't matter. Finally, it's the 1 week where it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And there's something to be said about that. Obviously, there's a chance that Sergio putts well, but parlaying that with four guys that fit that mold is probably pretty foolish because, you can tip the scales too much, and I'm certainly guilty of that at times. You got to balance it out a little.
I've been doing it for 5 years, and I can attest that it doesn't work. Okay. I mean, I don't know what the sample size we need to make an official determination on it, but
that's what this show's about. We have testimonials from real life people who have done the legwork for you.
Don't do what I did.
Yeah, Decky, Sergio, Grillo, Bill Haas is now here. What about to round this out, this range, and then we'll get to the mid-range? 2 interesting names, and I want to ask about both of them. We have EVR and Charles Howell III. Do either of them really get you excited?
No, Charles Howell III, no. Never a big CH3 guy. Course history here is incredible. Some of the best you'll see from a guy that hasn't won here, just top 10 after top 10. I don't rely too much on course history. EVR piqued my interest a little bit at 8K. Burned everybody at the Masters with the WD, but played well in Dubai at the European Tour Championship. He was T14 there, and I just think he's more of like a volatile guy, more of a boomer bust guy. Charles Howell definitely the safer play, and I think he'll be more popular with that course history. But I think EVR lower ownership, and maybe a lot more boomer bust than CH3. So yeah, I like EVR a little bit, just coming off of what he did in Dubai. It showed that he was not injured, playing decent. I know that was a month ago, but he at least trending in the right direction.
The other thing about EVR that's interesting is predominantly when we've seen him here, it's been majors or WGCs or top tier events, the Memorial, Honda, Genesis, those types. He only has a couple starts in fields that I think are comparable to this. Like if he was playing in those type of events, I think there's a chance he would have already broken through on tour. So getting him a rep at the Sony could be a spot where he's 8K in a lot of fields that are stronger than this. So that is something to say. EVR's got some pedigree. Max from
Team and he's a Minnesota Golden Gopher too. Wow. Don't forget that.
And he looks like Kevin Tway, identical. Max from Team No Putt, yeah, a couple spots, just don't have like 6 of them. Anything else from the 8K range, or do you want to move down to? This is where the money's going to be won. There's about 40 guys in the 7s.
Yeah, I agree. No, I'm good on the 8K range. Not, the guys at the top I think are decent plays. I like Sergio the best. And then a lot of dusty, bad ball striking putting specialists in the low 8K range that I'm not going to be playing.
Very, very dusty. I do want to say, Craig in chat pointed this out. He's saying he's in a one and done tournament this year. A lot of people are. I'm going to be writing up a one and done article exclusively on Awesemo. It'll be free, you guys. Go check it out. We're going to do a segment tomorrow night, me and Jason Roslin on it. So if you're playing in that type of format, we have you covered just like everything else. We've got betting. We've got DFS. If you do a weird format, we will cover it for you. Doesn't mean I'm going to know what we're doing, but I'm going to certainly try. But I know I've never been fishing. It's a donk move. Do you go fishing on Lake Minnetonka or something shady?
I used to do a ton of fishing when I lived in Florida. I do not do much fishing up here. It doesn't compare. When you go saltwater fishing in the Gulf of Mexico, nothing compares to that. And then you move up here and they're catching walleye and crappie. And it's going to offend people. I know there's a lot of people up here that love fishing for walleye and crappie, but that's just not the same.
Yeah, I hear that. No, don't hear that. Don't even know what you're talking about. There's no gators up there, so that's a win in itself.
That is a win. Yeah, it freaked me out seeing people going swimming in the lakes. I was like, you're not getting me to go in the lakes here.
I don't do that. 7,900. Let's guess this is my range. We've got Leishman, Grillo, Munoz, and Brian Harman. I just want to talk about the upper 7s here because it's absolutely jam-packed. Couple guys that played last week in Leishman and Munoz. Obviously, guys like Grillo, Harman, Keegan, Siwoo. We have basically everything you could want. It's just about allocating what fits your lineup. What do you think is your priority?
Yeah, I mean, I think Grillo's in the same spot he always is. I think he's a good, safe play, loves these type of tracks. I just kind of doesn't seem to be able to get there. Leishman, I think, is interesting. Again, didn't play great last week, but he was plus 3.8 with the approach. The irons were good. The putting was horrible. But, we're seeing small steps out of him. 13th at the Masters. Okay, iron play last week. He's played really well at this course. So I think, for the price, a guy who, if he is coming back to, where he has been in the past, I think he's still underpriced. There's still some question marks, so it's a little risky. I don't think the ownership will be there. I like him as kind of as a flyer. And as another guy, as a flyer, I like is Siwoo Kim at 7,600. I just think he made a lot of strides last year. We saw a lot of consistent finishes out of him, a lot more so than we had in the past. We haven't seen him in a while. He was gaining some popularity at the end of last year, but we haven't seen him in a while. And I mean, he just absolutely crushes these short Bermuda tracks. I mean, it's uncanny. Won the Players, won the Wyndham, 3rd at the Wyndham, runner-up at RBC, 3rd at Mayakoba. He has a 4th here at Sony. It's just, he's like that Kisner type of you just get him on these tracks, and he's great. And I think this might be kind of a spot to buy if he is trending in the right direction where nobody's going to be on him, and maybe he takes another step forward this year.
I like that call a lot, actually, as a tournament play, because Siwoo is someone all the time. Even the knock on him was he's so unpredictable. He can come out of nowhere. Well, that's great for early season golf because we don't know anything about anyone. He's shown he can thrive in those conditions. We're going to get to some Wyndham correlation for me with some really deep sleepers in a minute. So I'm glad you brought that up. I want to go back to Leishman for a second, though. I bet him last week. I bet him this week again. I was actually very happy to see because he showed enough where I know that the game is not completely gone. It's in there. This guy hasn't missed a cut here since 2010. He plays every year. He's rattled off 10 straight made cuts, third in 2019. Leishman is a buy for me. The bigger question is it's hard when you're competing with maybe the best play on the slate in Emiliano Grillo, who is also sitting right there. 18th at RSM, 8th at OHL. He can't putt, but he's a great ball striker. I have no problem with this course fit for him. Not going to go crazy. Obviously, I'm embellishing a little saying he's the best play on the slate. He's not, but he is firmly in play, 4 for 4 in made cuts at Sony. What do you think about Grillo?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything lines up great. This is our great tracks for him. These short Bermuda tracks. He's another guy that really likes it here. I just don't. I mean, it's tough. As a guy who won so early in his career at the Safeway. I mean, I don't even remember how many years ago that was now.
It's a while.
It was a while, yeah. And he just seems to have a problem kind of getting over the hump. Even when he's in contention, but the price is fine, right? It's like we don't need him to win. Like the T12 will get it done for you for sure. I like him. I just think I'm going to probably go with more of a volatile guy like a Leishman or a Siwoo Kim. But I mean, I don't have anything bad to say about Grillo.
I think that's where lineup construction is so important. Like if you really go crazy, but I'm talking like if you have Sanjay and a couple other guys, you may want to roll the dice with a Siwoo, with the Leishman, with there's plenty of guys we're about to get to. Say you're different at the top, though. To me, Grillo truly, even though he's so frustrating, he makes a lot of cuts. He cashes a lot of fringe top 20 type tickets. He can get it there and not derail the lineup. It's always scary when you can't putt like that. But I'll look to him. Keegan is interesting. I do think he fits like the Sergio type where he can gain off the tee here, and he's a streaky putter, even though predominantly awful. He does get hot at times. He would be in the tournament bucket for me. I do like Siwoo, and I like Leishman more than him, though.
Yeah, he was the ball striking, I want to say was trending at the end of last year, but it's like he seems like he's been trending for 5 years straight. I mean, he always hits it well, and the putter can just be so hot or cold. I don't mind him. I think the other guys we talked about, I like better. And then there's some cheaper guys, kind of going down. Russell Knox.
Obviously.
I don't know though. I said never again. It's like I feel like I said never again, and then it was like immediately he finished in the top 10 at like I don't remember where it was, Mayakoba or RSM. Just another one of those guys that just loves these types of tracks. Oh God. Neesmith, God, I hate the name. I know, but boy, look at the numbers from the end of last year. They were really, really good. The ball striking was really good. But boy, he feels like he's overpriced this name. Like from a name recognition standpoint, I think Knox probably better, Reeves probably better. Neesmith's ball striking caught my eye, but boy, it seems bad to click his name right over actual real golfers.
Yeah, he is playing well. Credit to him. I would rather play. So you've got a couple. So this is an interesting range. We've got Mackenzie Hughes and Kevin Na. Both played last week, but they played really bad. Mackenzie Hughes lost 6.5 strokes putting, which, I mean, as outlier can be, he's a world-class putter. And that part was interesting. He paired it with horrible ball striking.
Yes.
Yeah. Kevin Na also very bad off the tee and struggled. Russell Knox, yeah, I mean, you can look at it two ways. He was cut at RSM, but around that, 23rd at OHL, 15th at Houston, 16th at Bermuda. The guy's got how many top fives at Honda? If he didn't make like a 30 on the island hole at Sawgrass, he could have been in the contention at the Players one time.
You had to bring that up, right? I didn't think anybody would mention that.
That was bad. It's because he didn't go to anyone who panics and then they don't go to the drop zone immediately. That's when you know it's bad. I don't mind going to him here, even though he's another frustrating player. What about Ches? He's also 7,400.
Yes. So he kind of stuck out to me as a guy who seemed underpriced, and maybe that was because he didn't finish the year all that strong, but seems like a better quality of golfer than the other guys in this range. And this just seems like one of those things where you have to pick, do we want to go with maybe a better golfer who isn't playing well? But keep in mind, we haven't seen any of these guys in 6 weeks. So what does it really matter? And that's kind of what I was talking about at the top. Are we going to rely on Russell Knox's recent form from 8 weeks ago? I mean, I don't know how much that carries over. So yeah, I guess that's a long-winded and roundabout way of saying, yeah, I do kind of like Ches because he seems underpriced and a better golfer compared to some of these other guys. He just didn't finish the season very strongly last year.
No, not at all. But he absolutely, and again, course history is course history, but he's torn this place apart. He gained 13 strokes tee to green in 2019 here, 10.6 in 2018, 8.3 in 2017. I mean, it makes sense. More importantly, and Tim, I know you preach this as well. Yes, you want to see the results, but does it make sense? And it makes perfect sense that Ches and Russell Knox could do good here because it's the type of course that they do good at. So I think that's where we're going. But let's talk about the lower sevens here. You've got guys like Scott Piercy, who I do think is kind of an interesting name. Stanley is there, Sneds, Cameron Davis, Brandon Grace. I've seen his name come up. What do you make of the low sevens? Yeah,
you saw his name come up because he's the lock. He's the lock of the week this week.
Oh, that's great.
That's where you saw his name come up.
Why?
I'm going to tell you why. You gotta. This is one of the good plays where it's not so obvious. Like you got to dig for this. We're digging. So we'll go back to RSM. T30, but he gained 3 strokes with the ball striking. That's only in the 3 measured rounds. So good ball striking, not a great finish, but gaining the 3 strokes ball striking 3 rounds, that's solid. T40 in Mayakoba, we don't have stats for that. But then he went to Dubai World Tour Championship, and he was T8. And this is a guy won at Harbour Town, right? We'd consider that kind of like corollary course, short Bermuda track, a lot similar to this. And I just think this guy has tons of top finishes in major championships. A little bit like Leishman. It's like really down year last year after the restart, but showing a little bit of signs of life that, I don't think other people are going to pick up on. I don't think anybody's paying attention to the fact that he finished 8th in Dubai. And even though that was 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think it's a good sign. I like kind of the course fit. I like the talent level for 7,100. And just a guy that, if he is trending in the right direction, like you always say, you're only going to get one shot, right? If he finishes T3 this week, he's going to be 8,500 next week or whatever. So I really like this spot for him.
So the good thing, we got a great social team here at Awesemo, and I will be having them clip that little segment, and we're going to put that on the Twitter machine when Brandon Grace gets it done for you, hopefully, because he's going to be really low owned. There's no doubt about it. He's flashed some talent. He did go to Europe. And I think in a field like this, again, it's all, I preach this, but I feel really strongly, it's about lineup construction. Like if you're going to go very generic up top, that's the type of play to anchor with, because Brandon Grace has upside. He just has, to me, massive miscut equity. It's a very dangerous pick. I'm going to throw out one of my own in a second. I do want to ask you directly about Scott Piercy, though. He's another guy that absolutely loves this course here. Ton of experience, making cuts to close 2020. Good ball striker, one of your favorites. Any feeling on him? Can he keep it going?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Is like, can he keep it going? He was definitely one of those players that I leaned on. We'll get to another one here in the upper 6th range of guys that were just playing well at the end of last year. They were making cuts. They were striking it well. And I was playing week in and week out. Charlie Hoffman was another one, but he was a little more inconsistent at the end of last year. But yeah, look, he was playing great. And the course history is good. He's a guy I like, but it's another one of those things where it's like, we're going to just have to weigh. And I don't think he'll be very popular. But in a lot of these guys, we're just going to have to weigh, like, are the results from 6 or 8 weeks ago commensurate with, I don't even know if that was a word, but with his ownership this week, or over analyzing or putting too much stock in what happened? He played great. He's a guy I don't know. I'd rather roll the dice with Grace, but I don't mind Piercy.
Yeah. So what I try to do, I'm not going to say, oh my God, I'm glad if my guys played horrible, before the break. It's more that in addition to having good form leading into 2021, he likes this course, and I think it fits his game. So it's just an added bonus. It's just like guys like Ches. I don't want to see him struggling, but the other factors kind of weigh out more to me. And Scott Piercy, I think, is in a fine spot. If it's windy, it's not going to matter. He's shown that he comes here and he plays well. I have one guy, though. This is going to be we're going to do a little head-to-head. You have Brandon Grace, and tell me if you think this is fair. I think it is. JT Poston is my big sleeper this week. So I want to take you back. Another guy who really struggled in 2020, especially during the summer. He lost in 10 straight tournaments with the approach, and that absolutely killed him. Since then, though, that was in June, July, and August. In September, he found a little form, and then he was third at Sanderson Farms. He's gained on the approach in 5 of 6. He's a world-class putter, and his win was at Wyndham. 6th at Heritage. Those are 2 of his 5 best finishes on tour. I think this is a guy, a great Bermuda putter. He has the formula here. I don't know where the game is at, but for a true, couple percenter, I think JT Poston is a deep sleeper this week who actually fits the course better than you would think.
Yeah, I agree. Should be a good course fit for him. Of course, you're trying to get over on me here on this gentleman's bet by picking a $7,300 golfer instead of a $7,100. You got to keep my eye on you.
Fine. I'll take him all.
Yeah. there you go. He's like, yeah, I mean, I don't mind Poston. It's of course you're going there. He's your boy.
That's right.
But yeah, the course fit should be good. I played him at the Masters. He wasn't very good at the Masters, but we're not going to talk about that.
Tough scene, but no. And listen, that comes with the territory with both those guys. All right, we got about 15 minutes left. Let's get to the 6K range. I do want to say a couple things. One, Chad, as always, it's really fun to see you guys in here interacting. Shout out to John Jefferson, friend of the show, really sharp guy, as you can see, took down a big tournament there, and we love to see you guys break through and have some success. We'll take credit for it. It's not because of us, but we really hope that little things that we say make all the difference, especially Tim's Brandon Grace touts. If you haven't and you want to sign up, we have so many packages here from weekly to monthly to annual, every sport, golf, platinum, which is all inclusive. We'd love to get you in, get in Slack chat. We've had a ton of new signups lately, and it's great to grow the community here at Awesemo. And if you can't sign up, show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing to the YouTube channel, totally free, but still much appreciated. Now, we've still got like a bajillion golfers because it's a full field, Tim. My first question to you is always this, because you have a good feel on, do you think it's necessary to go into the 6s, and how comfortable do you feel going down there this week? You're muted. You're still muted. Your third time, you're muted, kid. You may have broken your computer and you're permanently muted. That would be a new one.
No. Am I back?
No, you're back. You were saying the gold, but no one could hear you.
Wow. That was it. I think it's lost forever. It's totally gone. Yeah. Sorry. My daughter, as I was telling them before the show, spilled hot chocolate on the MacBook. So we're running the backup here, and it's little different. I don't think it's necessary to go below 6K this week. I think there's
Don't do that.
You got me flustered. 7K. I think there's a lot of good plays in the lower mid 7K range. I think you can build balanced lineups, and honestly, there's just not a lot of guys I feel super comfortable with below 7K. I don't know. My guy Dougie Gim at 6,800. I think he's kind of the lock this week if you want to go below 7K. But I don't know. I don't see. Is there anybody you love below 7K?
Certainly not love. I feel fine if I have to land here. I'd prefer certainly. I think we've named a lot of good guys in the low 7s, and there is to me, a significant drop. But Doug Gim is someone, we preach this a lot. at next year's Sony, he could easily be 8,500. That's not a stretch. He could be on the Corn Ferry Tour probably too. But you know what? The risk reward, he's starting to show some form. The guy I wanted to bring up is Peter Malnati, though. Very good putter. Had a nice stretch late in the year, and then it fell off to close it at RSM and OHL. He did not play well. But this is a guy certainly doesn't rely on distance off the tee. If he can survive off the tee, get to the irons, get to the putter, he's had some experience at Sony. He was 12th last year. It's just someone I like because he has one skill set that is world-class, and it's putting. So you could look there. Chap brought up Austin Cook. I looked at that name. Ultimately, I don't think I'm going to get there, Tim, but this is someone every so often he does pop, and when he does, he usually is in contention.
Yeah, one, I believe it was RSM. Is that where Austin Cook won? So a similar type of track to this. Boy, I don't know. I don't think I'm getting there. I'll just double down on what you said with Gim. When he came onto the tour, you would have put him in there from a college pedigree standpoint with guys like Morikawa, college teammate of Scheffler, Hovland, that type of player. And he just got off to a slow start, and he played very well at the end of last year. Good finishes, good ball striking, and I'm actually surprised at the price. I think 6,900 is a really good price. I thought he'd be definitely more expensive than that, and just a guy who, by the end of the year, you could see him up in 8,500 in an event like this. So I like him. I think he's a pretty easy play. But boy, it's I don't know. Not a lot of guys that I like down here. Keith Mitchell, Luke List, if you want to just go kind of like the crazy scorer type. Mitchell has the Honda connection. It seems like I didn't expect Honda to be a great fit for him. I wouldn't think this was a great fit. But he has a 16th to 25th. I guess if you want to go kind of wild man scoring, you could go that route, but I don't feel super comfortable. Will Gordon seems to be everybody loves jamming this guy in, and I'm not even sure if he's good at golf. But I guess he'll probably be a popular punt this week.
So I don't even think this is a hot take, but Keith Mitchell and Honda is I truly think maybe one of the worst course fits. And I think as we see, it's going to be that he's going to have a win there and a string of miscuts, because I never understand how that happened. I think it was just an outlier, because Keith Mitchell winning Honda, I'll never understand. He's got a pair of miscuts at Honda centered around it. But I do see you mentioned the Bombers. I'd throw Higgs in there. Pure scorers. I don't think they fit this course, and their form is not good. So I'd tread lightly there. What about a couple guys that played last week? Would you rather have someone like Gim, or would you look to Michael Thompson, to Richie Wawrinski, guys who were a little overmatched in the Tournament of Champions, but did get 4 rounds under their belt?
I just don't think those guys are that good. I think Gim is a better talent. He hasn't accomplished as much in his career as these other guys, but I just like the fact of kind of taking a long-term buy on a young guy and thinking down the road, he is going to be a considerably better golfer than these other guys in this range. I'm just not a big fan of all these other guys. And oh my God,
what?
Did you lose me?
No.
I thought I lost me. Sorry. All kinds of crap going on this computer. I'm just not a big fan of these other guys, and none of them played that well. Thompson, Streb, Swafford, Wawrinski, Gay, Landry, Taylor. None of them were positive in the ball striking. None of them finished better than T20, I guess T21 for Michael Thompson. So no, I'm a fan of just going with the long-term buy of Gim. I'll give you another guy in the lower 6th range, I guess, that caught my eye was Kramer Hickok, who kind of finished the season playing pretty well. He was 58th in Houston. The finish wasn't that good, but positive ball striking plus 2.4. He was 8th at Bermuda. He was 15th on the Corn Ferry Tour. He missed the cut at Sanderson Farms, but he was 21st at Corrales. So nice little finish for him. So out of everybody in the lower 6K range, he was the one guy that caught my eye of somebody who was actually playing pretty well at the end of last year. And he's a young guy. I kind of like that. as opposed to some of these older journeymen who it's like, well, you know what, we kind of know what we're going to get from them and it's not good. Take a shot with a younger guy and maybe he's going to make some strides early in the year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot easier for me to think that Kramer Hickok had a drastic leap in his game over a couple of months of offseason than a guy who's been doing this for years and years and years. I like Kramer Hickok. I was on him at Bermuda. Just a good little player, texting, doesn't mind wind. But you brought up Matthew Neesmith and you referenced his good recent form. What about this guy? 36th at Safeway, 6th at Corrales, 37th at Sanderson Farms, and 11th at Bermuda. 4 straight made cuts for Anaban Lahiri.
Oh, yeah, boy.
Yeah, he's in the field, playing a little better here. I don't hate the course fit. Hasn't had a ton of success, and ultimately, I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'll need to go this low, but he is in at least the conversation. I would rather go to him than some of these other guys down here, which you mentioned. Not a lot to go on. The biggest problem, there's just a ton of names down here. There's literally 60 guys in this range.
You didn't even mention his second at the Jeev Milka Singh Invitational.
Well, this show is all about assists. I wanted to tee you up for that. And you've done nicely.
He was outdueled by Karnadeep Kochar.
And we know that that's an up and comer. So Lahiri, listen, again, I don't know how much you're going to need to go in this range. Hubbard, yeah, that's another name that I see quite often down here, and he makes some cuts. 60. Let's click into Mark Hubbard before we get out of here. Week off the tee. The game just looks pretty average at best, to be honest. I don't hate it. Makes some cuts, but rarely contends in any format.
Yeah, Hubbard had a run last year, and the price started getting up there, and then I believe he must have fallen off a cliff because we're right back into homeless hubs territory. So now there's just for me, I think there's certain weeks where there's a lot of guys in like the dumpster diving range that I like, but a lot of that has to do with kind of tracking finishes, tracking ball striking, and seeing guys that are trending. It's hard when we don't have any information. You're kind of just taking shots in the dark. And that's what makes it difficult for me to be confident in these cheap guys. Because I think as we get down the road and we get a lot of tournaments under our belt, it's like I'll see guys trending in the right direction and maybe the finishes aren't really there. And it's like, oh, I'll key in on a guy down here. But now it's like, boy, we don't really have much of anything to go off of, and that's tough. It's really tough to be confident in the cheap guys. You
have to infer a lot to make a leap down here, and it can be a big payoff, and I like that aspect of it. My final thoughts as we bounce on out of here in a couple minutes, you bring this up a lot. I actually feel okay with these guys in a vacuum. The problem I have is you pay down to free up more salary for Harris English, and even dead. Like, this is not I'm getting Rahm and JT. The top end is not strong enough to carry what I think is the sacrifice you're making from the 7s to the 6s. So like, I'll bring up one last guy, and I'm not saying I think he's going to play well, but in theory, and he's let us down recently at courses that he should. Wesley Bryant is 6,300. I don't think that he's a $6,300 golfer. I just don't know if I need to go down there though. If I do that, that's going to allow me to maybe play 2 north of 10K. I don't really like that build at first glance.
You had to bring up Wesley Bryant. I was going to let it go. I was going to just let it go.
I know.
And you just had to go there.
It's not, that's a little much, don't you think? 63.
Just perfect course fit, man. It just couldn't ask for a better course. I see you're talking me into him just by mentioning. Yeah, I mean, that's a good
player pool for sure.
Right. I agree. We're not going to let, 2 missed cuts at really weak field events last year derail us. But a good point about like what you're paying up for. And even just kind of looking at the outright odds, these guys are the most expensive in the field, but they're not 6-1 to win, 7-1, 8-1 like we would see DJ. It's like 11-1, 14-1. So yeah, like if you're paying down, it's like what are we really accomplishing? And I'm kind of with you. This isn't a like a jam Webb and Harris like superstars and scrubs week for me.
No, I just don't see it. And again, each week we have to treat kind of on its own because they're different fields, and we're just getting started here, chat. You guys know it. I will say last thing. If you are betting some golf, we have a ton of betting content posted. You can check out Odd Shopper to find the best lines across all the books. Me and Josh Engelman already filmed our top 3 contenders video, favorite outright bets. So you can check that out. And certainly if you have questions, you hit up Tim on Twitter. You can hit up me on Twitter too. I'll respond. Don't know if I'll be helpful, but I'll try. We'll be back tomorrow night, live before lock, answering your questions, talking player exposure, lineup construction, all that things, tools, ownership, everything that you guys need to hopefully be successful at Sony. So on that note, me and Tim are going to bounce on out of here. I can't wait to ask you questions about your computer shenanigans. That spiced up the show today. A good time. Chat, good luck. As always, we'll be back same time, same place next week.